A group of wealthy men in tailored suits huddle around a lavish table in a dimly lit mansion, the air thick with incense and hushed secrets. At the center, a young man, nervous but hungry for wealth. He grips a dagger handed to him by his mentor, a billionaire adorned in gold. "For power beyond your wildest dreams," the mentor whispered, "you must sacrifice what you hold dear. Your own blood will seal the deal." The room falls silent as the blade rises, a child's terrified face appearing before a scream pierces the darkness. And then, everything fades away. This is a scene from a Nigerian Hollywood classic from way back in 2003. I think that's when my ancestor was being born. I was a child. The movie is called Billionaire's Club. It shocked audiences with its tale of a secret society trading innocent lives for untold riches. But what if I told you this wasn't just a movie plot? In Uganda, a real-life version unfolded, where a multi-millionaire businessman allegedly orchestrated a ritual sacrifice to boost his empire. The man accused? Godfrey Kato Kajubi, a tycoon with influence stretching from the Masaka Hills to Kampala's elite circles. And the victim? A 12-year-old boy whose body was found mutilated, his head and genitals vanished forever. And I'm speaking right now, it was never found. And this is in Uganda, where ancient beliefs in spirits and rituals still whisper through modern life. This case became a storm. Crazy. It exposed the dark intersection of power, money, and superstition. A place where a child's life could be traded for fortune. Today, on Beneath the Rift, we step into this chilling story. The disappearance of 12-year-old Joseph Kasirye, the ritual that claimed him, and the trial that shook a nation. But remember, this tale is heavy with loss and cultural shadows. If it hits close to home, especially if you're a parent or from Uganda's heartlands, take a breather. We are here to uncover with respect, not fear. So let's begin. But before we go deeper, a gentle note. This story touches on violence, loss, and a nation's grief. It's heavy, especially if you felt the pulse of Uganda's music or lost someone too soon. Because this happened a lot, so a lot of people might relate to it. My goal is to honor Joseph's life with care, not to sensationalize. If this hits close, take it at your own pace. Let's step into his world together with respect and curiosity. To understand this tragedy, we need to meet the man at its center. Godfrey Kato Kajubi, born in the fertile lands of Buganda. He actually rose from humble beginnings to become one of Uganda's most prominent figures. By the early 2000s, he was a self-made millionaire, his empire built on real estate, construction, and investments that dotted Kampala's skyline. He owned vast properties, from luxury homes to commercial buildings in Kampala, Jinja, and Masaka. And his wealth was the stuff of local legends. Cars gleaming in driveways, generosity flowing like the Nile. Kajubi wasn't just rich, he was connected, and in Uganda connections are a big thing. You might be the most educated, you might be anything else, but if you don't have good connections, it's useless. In Masaka, a region known for its rolling hills and strong Buganda heritage, he was a kingmaker of some sorts. He funded community projects. I'm talking schools, clinics, roads, mention them, earning him praise from villagers. The villagers who saw him, of course, as a benefactor. But there were whispers. Like in Buganda culture, where prosperity is often tied to spiritual balance, some say his success fell too swift, too unchecked. His money isn't clean. Neighbors would murmur, they would talk about it over evening fires, evening walks, hinting at rituals that might fuel such rapid rise. Like it came from nothing to millionaire, quick, according to them. Kajubi dabbled into politics too, by the way, supporting local initiatives and candidates. His name linked to Uganda's influential networks. He was respected, feared, and always watching. A 2008 report from Uganda's New Vision described him as a philanthropist with a sharp business mind. But even then, shadows lingered. Friends spoke of his charm. He'd host lavish parties, hand out cash to the needy, just like Oprah. You get a car, stuff like that. That was money. But others noted his temper, his insistence on loyalty. In a society where wealth can buy influence, Kajubi embodied the dream. I mean, from Masaka's red earth to Kampala's power circles. Yet, as we'll see, that dream had a price. And that price, one paid in blood. Can you imagine building an empire from nothing, only for it to crumble under the weight of dark secrets? Kajubi's life was about to collide with the boy's innocence in the worst way. Now let's turn to the heart of this story. Joseph Kasirye, a 12-year-old boy whose life was as bright as the Ugandan sun. Joseph lived in Kayugi village. It's near Masaka, in a simple home with his grandfather, Matia Mulondo, and his family. He was the kind of child who lit up a room. Always curious, but really helpful, always carried a smile on him. School was his world. He attended Kayugi Primary School and dreamt of becoming a doctor. Like he wanted to help others like healers in his community. Mornings, he'd help his family fetch water from the stream, since they didn't have any running water at home. Evenings spent playing football with friends on like dusty fields. Life was really modest, but full of promise. Or the only thing we could be is hopeful. But on the evening of October 27, 2008, everything changed. Joseph was lured away from home with a promise that seemed a little bit too good to be true. Well, according to the testimonies in court records, a neighbor whose name was mentioned, actually Umaru Katerega, alias Bosco, visited Mulondo's home that day. He spoke with Joseph, who gave him water to drink. And shortly after, Joseph picked up a 10-liter jerrycan to fetch water at around 7:30 p.m. But he never returned. His grandfather searched the village that night. He knocked on different doors, asking neighbors if they'd seen him, his voice echoing through the quiet paths. Relatives joined, combing the bush, calling his name into the darkness. But silence, no response. The community rallied, neighbors, teachers, even local leaders. But hours turned into days. He was a good boy, never any trouble, his grandfather Matia Mulondo later testified. And then the testimonies from villagers painted a picture of collective grief. Children stopped playing, parents held their kids closer, fear rippling like a stone in a pond. Joseph's disappearance wasn't just a missing child case. In Buganda's rural heart, it stirred odd fears, whispers of Ebisada, Sadaka. It's called Sadaka, ritual sacrifice, right? Those rumors began almost immediately. Why a boy like Joseph though? And why so suddenly? The pain of his family was palpable. A grandfather's anguish that echoes across massacre. Little did they know that this was no random abduction. It was tied to a man whose wealth demanded more. So imagine a grandfather's heart shattering as the stars came out. His grandson's laughter silenced forever. Joseph's story reminds us how fragile innocence can be. Here's where the story turns to nightmare. What happened to Joseph on that hill was rooted in ancient beliefs that still haunt parts of Uganda. So here, let me tell the whole picture now. In Buganda culture, some traditional practices, often twisted by desperation, hold that certain body parts carry spiritual power, apparently. Heads for wisdom and leadership, genitals for virality and prosperity, blood for opening, like doors of fortune. These aren't endorsed by modern society or law, but in whispers around like village fires, they persist as superstitions, fueling unimaginable acts. So according to chilling testimonies from the trial, Godfrey Kato Kajubi sought out a witch doctor. Those are like the Sangomas kinda. Umaru Katerega to perform a ritual sacrifice. Desperate for even greater wealth and influence, which he already had, perhaps to bolster his real estate business in Kampala, Jinja and Masaka. He allegedly paid Katerega 360,000 Uganda shillings up front. That's around, let's say, $100, with a promise of 15 million more. Court established that Kajubi and Katerega were long-time associates, with Kajubi as the client. The plan was simple and sinister. Lure a child, perform the ritual under the cover of night, and harvest the powerful parts. Joseph was the chosen victim. Young, pure, his life was believed to amplify the magic. The details drawn from court records and witness confessions are gut-wrenching. So, on that October evening, Joseph was taken to Katerega's home in Kayugi. And there, in the presence of Katerega and his wife, Mariam Nabukera, Kajubi and an accomplice named Stephen allegedly carried out the act. When Katerega and Nabukera protested, Kajubi reportedly pulled out a pistol, threatening to kill them both. So they slit Joseph's throat, collecting his blood, believing it would unlock riches. His head was severed and his genitals removed. His chest was cut open to extract the heart. Whew. It's chilling. And the mutilated body was then dumped in a nearby swamp. It was just there left for animals or discovery, as if erasing the evidence of such horror.
This is where he had stuffed the mutilated body of the child. It's where we found it.
Katerega later testified that Kajubi took the missing parts for his ritual. To this day, those body parts, Joseph's head and genitals, they have never been recovered, leaving his family pleading for their return to give him a proper burial.
To this day, we are still searching for his body parts so that we return them. Even if the grave has been cemented, we'll break it open if we find them, so we can give him a proper burial the way every person deserves.
Villagers found the remains the next day, on October 28, 2008. A resident spotted a small form in the swamp. The mutilation was so severe that identification took time. DNA and family recognition confirmed it was Joseph. But as the technology was not so advanced back then, it really took a long time to come out. And this discovery sent shockwaves. Screams echoed through Kayugi. Mothers clashed their children, and the word sacrifice spread like wildfire. Because before this, rumors about Kajubi's wealth had circulated. Not claimed though. But now, eyes turned to him. You know, back then I remember that time I was really young, but that's when the Kusadaka was a problem. Like, parents were not letting us move. It was tight. And in Buganda lore, rituals like these are tied to Jaja spirits, ancestors who demand offerings for blessings. Blood is seen as the life essence, heads as seats of destiny. But experts from Uganda's cultural ministry, in reports from like 2009 obviously, warn these are distortions of tradition, exploited by charlatans for profit. Witnesses spoke airily of feeling the power flow, but honestly it was just human greed. Not magic that drove that blade, it was greed. Still, the belief lingers, a rift between old ways and new laws. Can you feel the chill of like ancient shadows creeping into modern world? This ritual wasn't just murder. It was a desperate grasp at forbidden power. The police moved swiftly, but in a case laced with fear and influence, it wasn't easy. Uganda's Child Sacrifice Task Force formed in response to rising reports. It took charge. It was led by officers like ASP Samuel Magezi. They canvassed Masaka, interviewing witnesses who'd seen Joseph with strangers. Oh my goodness, tips were coming in left and right. Tips were many. People kept coming up. The more people came up, more others came up. Villagers pointing to witch doctors known for services to the wealthy. And on the morning after the murder, residents saw Umaru Katerega and Mariam Nabukera leaving the village with a bag. They told the police. SPC Sebwana tipped off about their suspicious behavior, arrested them, and took them to the LC1 chairperson, Matovu Gerald, who forwarded them to Kako Police Station and then Masaka Police Station. Luckily, they caught them before they escaped, thanks to the villagers informing the person, the SDC. So under interrogation, they confessed. But not only did they confess, they also implicated Kajubi. They led police to the swamp where Joseph's body was recovered. A search of their home found the 10-liter jerrycan Joseph had carried and blood-stained clothes belonging to Katerega. Evidence mounted quickly, and then one of the telecommunication companies, MTN, the MTN phone printouts were key. They showed almost daily communication between Kajubi's number and Katerega's from October 15th to 30th of 2008. So they brought out all those phone records, and the record placed Kajubi in the vicinity of the crime scene in Masaka on that night, the night of the murder, corroborating the witnesses' accounts. Tire marks from a vehicle were seen at Katerega's home, matching descriptions of Kajubi arriving after midnight. So it's like all the pieces were now coming together, and people's stories were actually gelling and merging. Police also recovered a shotgun and revolver from Kajubi's home. And you know, in Uganda it's illegal to have guns, lending credence to the testimony about the pistol threat. So Kajubi vanished after the murder, disappearing from his homes and workplaces for a month, despite widespread media coverage featuring his photos. But he eventually surrendered. But whispers say he was found hiding in a shrine in Reza, but they spinned it all around to be like, oh, he surrendered. Media play much. Anyway, he was arrested on November 5th, 2008 at his Kampala home. He denied everything, calling it a frame-up, but the evidence was damning. The arrest made national news, with crowds gathering outside police stations demanding justice. Poor Joseph. For Joseph's family, it was a flicker of hope amid the grave.
Reminded of how he used to help me at home. I used to send him to run a few errands.
Amid the investigation, rumors swirled. The prosecutor on the case was reportedly involved in a nasty accident, adding to the eerie atmosphere.
Vincent Wagona was involved in a traffic accident when his Pajero driver Moses Akona knocked an Ipsum saloon car from behind, injuring 2 passengers in the Ipsum, 30-year-old Siana Nantongo and her 3-year-old son. Moses Akona is under custody at Masaka Central Police for driving the car without a driving permit.
Imagine detectives piecing together a puzzle of blood and betrayal, closing in on the man who thought he was untouchable because he had power and influence. The road to justice was a roller coaster, honestly, spanning over a decade. Kajubi's first trial in Masaka High Court before Justice Moses Muchibi began in 2009. And then in April 2010, the judge ruled there was no case to answer, and then acquitted Kajubi due to what he saw was unreliable evidence from Katerega and Nabukera, whom he treated as accomplices needing corroboration. But when the citizens heard about that, there was public outrage, obviously. Protests rocked Kampala and Masaka. Parents marched with signs reading, "No more sacrifices." Sacrifices were rampant at that time, by the way. It was left and right. And Joseph's grandfather wept in interviews, pleading, "Who will answer for my grandson?" And the director of public prosecutions appealed immediately. He didn't even waste time. He appealed immediately. And then in November 2010, the Court of Appeal, with Justices Twino Mujuni, Kavuma, and Nshimye, overturned the acquittal. They criticized the trial judge for demanding proof beyond reasonable doubt at the no case stage, mishandling phone evidence, and improperly using Nabukera's extrajudicial statement to discredit her. The COF found the prosecution had established a prima facie case, ordering Kajubi to be put on his defense. And then, guess what happened after they appealed? A retrial ensued before Justice Mike Chibita at Masaka High Court. Now this is a different justice. Key witnesses Katerega and Nabukera testified in detail, describing the murder, the pistol threat, and Kajubi's role. The phone printouts and physical evidence sealed it. Blood on Katerega's clothes matched Joseph's. The DNA was a match. And the records placed Kajubi at the scene. On March 12, 2012, Kajubi was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. 2012 now, that's 4 years later. The courtroom erupted. Joseph's relatives cheered while Kajubi's supporters gasped. "This is for all the children," his family said outside. The interview after the court process had ended. But guess who didn't sit down? Kajubi appealed to the Court of Appeal, which upheld the conviction and life sentence in 2014. Dismissing his grounds, he took it to the Supreme Court, where in November 2021, imagine all those years later, like 9 years later, 5 justices unanimously upheld the ruling, confirming Kajubi sponsored the ritual murder. He remains in Luzira Upper Prison to this day. And in a separate case, the witch doctor Umaru Katerega and his assistant Dennis Kauye were sentenced to life imprisonment in 2024 as well. How many years are those later? Plenty of years later. Katerega's defense highlighted his advanced age. 4 wives, not one, 4 wives. 4 wives and 71 children, pleading for leniency. But the court stood firm. Nabukera, his wife, was also implicated, but her sentence details vary in reports, so I won't say much. The drama exposed flaws in Uganda's justice system, but also its resilience. During the trials, witnesses invoked cultural defenses, claiming rituals were traditional consultations, but the courts rejected this, emphasizing that no belief justifies harm. It sparked debates. Are these acts of superstition or calculated crime? Close your eyes for a second. Here is the gavel fall. A family's relief cutting through years of pain. Justice came, but at what cost? This case ignited a firestorm. Fears of child sacrifice, already shimmering with over 300 reported cases yearly in Uganda. Okay, that was like 2009. Boiled over. Parents in Masaka, actually parents in the whole of Uganda and beyond, grew vigilant. Children walked in groups. Schools added security. And then around elections, when power ritual rumors peaked, anxiety spiked. Media coverage in New Vision and Daily Monitor framed it as a wake-up. How does wealth mix with witchcraft to endanger the innocent? Whispers of curses and accidents, like the prosecutor's crash, added to that supernatural dread. Communities discussed it openly. Like I said, there are very many local beliefs in the country that you can't just stop like that. In Uganda, where kings once consulted oracles, modern superstitions prey on the vulnerable. NGOs launched campaigns educating on the dangers, and for many, it was a turning point. Superstition's grip exposed, but still not broken. It's not like then still not there. People that believe in superstitions are there, and there are many. Today, in 2025, Godfrey Kato Kajubi serves life at Luzira Upper Prison. His appeals exhausted. And Uganda has strengthened laws. The Prevention and Prohibition of Human Sacrifice Act of 2021 criminalizes rituals, with task forces raiding witch-doctor dens. Yet, cases persist. Police reported dozens annually. A reminder that superstitions haunt progress. Joseph's legacy lives in awareness. His family continues to plead for the return of his missing body parts for closure. And community programs support child safety in Masaka. It reflects Uganda's rift, ancient beliefs clashing with modernity, where education and law fight back. Villagers still whisper about Kajubi's unclean wealth, a cultural echo of how rituals promise fortune but deliver ruin. But hope glimmers. Community programs blend tradition with ethics, teaching that true power comes from unity and not blood or sacrifices or harm. This case asks, in a world of progress, how do we bridge the rift between past and present? Joseph's story urges us to protect the innocent, question the shadows, and build a safer tomorrow. Light a candle for him, share if you've had similar tales, and hold your loved ones close. Until next time, stay vigilant and curious.